All right, finally we're back, and I won't close this off this time. I'll just minimize. It's COMP305, Game Programming 1 with Unity and C#, and it's Lesson 10, Part 4 of our series. Let's get back into this thing, and I've got a project that I've kicked off. Again, I'm using this project that we've been working with. We're working with Level 2, and what I've got is I've added some additional assets here that I'm going to close off this project in a second. Under imported assets, I've added something called Dungeon Level Kit, and I'm going to close this off and share it on GitHub for a second. So first, I'm going to close off. First, I'm going to save everything. File, save scene. I'm going to go Unity and quit, and then I'm going to go back into here and go git add dot. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is like a 300-pounder. Oh boy, still going. Right? I don't know, guys. I don't know. Right? This is like 500 megs for sure. And then git commit -m, and I'll say added dungeon kit. There we go, dungeon kit, and then git push. I'm afraid origin master, and then hopefully they won't lock me out of GitHub forever. Let's see what happens. As for compressing our objects, nice that they're being compressed and they're zipped up. That's a good thing. I'm sure there's like lots of room for compression, but there are some objects that are not going to be compressed for sure. Thank God they do compression. All right, so let's see, 27%. That's pretty bad. It's okay. So maybe another 100 megs after compression. That's not bad. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. Again, our project is still massive. Right? Okay, maybe I'm wrong. 30% and it's 89 meg. Yeah. Okay, I'll let that do its thing while it uploads to GitHub, this massive thing. Now, the good thing with this is I'm going to have to take this down at the end of the semester, that's for sure. But you'll have some stuff that you can use. While this is doing while it's doing, and I'm not modifying anything, it's only going to send up the stuff that I've put up. So while it's sending, I'll launch GitHub, or I'll launch my Unity, and I'll continue with this example, right? While it's doing this thing. Okay, so here I am with Level 2, and I want to go to my maze tile because I had that in, if you remember, as a kind of a waypoint, some place of getting into this thing, into the maze, and back in. So I want to kind of create this arch. It's going to kind of come over here, right? And I've got all that for an arch. Under my dungeon level kit, which is kind of cool, there's lots of really cool prefabs. There's some simple prefabs like floor and walls and columns. And one of them is this arch 2, and another one is arch 1. I'm going to use arch 1, so I'm going to bring it into the scene here. And it's pretty cool looking. So this is our arch. And this arch is going to allow us to transport between both levels. So when I go through the arch, we're going to kind of create some kind of collider around the arch. And what kind of collider should I make? To me, it's a box collider, right? Nice and easy. Right, so here's my arch. If you notice, when I click onto it, right, it says arch 1. I'm going to kind of retool this thing to say, you know, kind of, we're going to call this a gateway. Right? And my gateway right now doesn't have a collider. Like, for example, if I look at the actual piece parts to it, it has a rigid body, it has an audio source, it has a character controller that's built into it. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Let's go back to my gateway. I meant my gateway. My arch 1 has a mesh renderer and a mesh collider built in, right? So, and it looks like it can be a convex collider, but I want to add another type of collider. Mesh collider is cool for the outside, but I want to add something in for the inside. So when you pass through the arch, I'm going to add another type of collider when you go through, and it's going to be something when you go through the arch, it transports you to the other side. Okay, so let's try this out, and it'll be vice versa. It'll go one way and the other way. We'll create this one time, and depending on which arch it'll be, so we'll say. We can create these different effects. We'll do it once. Okay, so let's go into add component, and I'm going to go into, again, physics, and I'm going to add a box collider here for this thing. Notice that the box is fairly large, and we're going to reduce the box size just so that way it fits within the arch itself. So like something like that. Because what I don't want to do is make my box irregularly shaped, right? No. So I want to kind of, do one of these. Undo. And I meant the size of my x coordinates is going to be slimmer, and my my center for my y is going to be, it's wrong. My center for my x is going to be kind of in the middle between these two. Let me focus in on there so you can see what I'm doing. And so what I'm trying to do is put this little collider in here, but it's not going to be a regular collider like one that's physics. It's going to be, I'm going to be using it for triggering, right? So let me just choose the size of my Z depth. So it's going to be, no, I meant my Y depth, so it's going to be slimmer. So it's actually passed through the arch. And my Y position is going to be into the arch itself. If I go into the arch, pass through it, and I collide with this thing, and let's look at see what I'm talking about here by zooming around, right? When I pass through this arch, then I transport myself to the other side, okay? All right, so this is I've made my gateway component, and this gateway is going to bring me to level 2, right, or level 1. So I'm going to say gateway to level 1, gateway to level 1, right? I'm going to make a gateway to level 2, which is the other way around. So with my gateway to level 1, when I collide with it, I'm going to add a little a script to it. So I'm going to say scripts, and I'm going to add a new script. It's going to be called, we're going to go, gateway to level 2, gateway to level 1, gateway to level 1. There we go. And I got to make sure that when my scripts come into play in my assets, so here's my asset folder, I want to take my scripts and put it in my scripts folder. And what I want this script to do, when I go in here, is this one, is when my player, right, when my player collides with my, with this collider, right, with my, again, it's a trigger collider, right? So on enter trigger, right? Anything that enters this, anything that enters, is going to go to the next level, right? So I got to be careful what I say here when I say anything, right? So how do we do that? So we don't need some of our start and everything else. I'm going to say on trigger enter, right? Not 2D this time. It's on trigger enter. And I need, if I'm not wrong, if it's a, I think it's a collider. Just a regular collider, and it's other or object, whatever the object is going to be. We'll say for the other game object, other collider, right? So when something triggers there, and notice how it gives me a bit of an error. It says parse error, class structure and interface method must have a return type, right? So of course I'm going to have void on trigger enter. I'm going to do this. If the other collider dot compare tag is the player only, that's the only time I worry about that, then I want to transform myself to level 2. Now, do you remember how we did that? When I said, application, what was that? Load level, right? then in brackets, it's the level that I've loaded, which is going to be called level 1. Let me go back to that one. So if I trigger it with my player, it's going to take me to application level 1. Now here's the challenge. When I go there, my player will be destroyed, and I'm going to appear at this other level, right? I won't appear where I'm supposed to appear, right? I'm just going to appear randomly in the place where my character starts. First, let's just try this out. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to go back to Unity, right? And I've got this little script attached to my gateway. Here it is. And eventually, I'm gonna have this work for everything else. And let's see if it works. So I'm gonna kind of say, oh, I got a problem. It says, I've got a problem for my joystick. That's the problem with some of this stuff. It says import assets, dungeon level kit, standard assets, cross-platform import, joystick, something or another. Already contains a definition for joystick. All right, so I got to go into my, this is the problem with some of this stuff, because it includes all kinds of stuff, like the example, an example dungeon. So I'm going to kind of get rid of that. Delete the example dungeon. Actually, maybe not the example dungeon, but some of the scripts that are involved. And we don't have a lot of time to finish this off here. So it's not going to be out of prefabs or meshes or materials. Here's some standard assets. This standard assets that are inside my dungeon level kit, get rid of them. So delete. And this is where it says they're all in the standard assets area. So delete. Because I don't need them. I already have them. And same thing with my gateway. It says, here's some stuff unexpected. This is actual things. So if here and if my other player collider. Oh, yeah, I forgot my other bracket here. There we go. So, and let's try that out now, see if that works. Good, and play. And if it doesn't play, if it doesn't work properly, then I'll get an error, which is totally cool. I don't mind dealing with errors. So let's go back to level 1. All right, so there's my archway, and then as I go through, nothing happens, right? So I'm not getting an error, which is kind of cool. Let's go stop the game. And let's check my console. I'm not getting an error, but I'm not also getting the trigger happening. So let's go back to this gateway and gateway for level 2. Under my arch, I see that I have a trigger collider, which is a box collider, right? And what I may want to do is put this, right now my box collider is, it's on my arch, right? So if I was to go back to that for a second really quickly, go back over there. Remember how these colliders work, right? If I hit the collider, I can't go through, right? Because there's an actual physical collider here, but I can go through this because on trigger enter is not really working properly with my guy, right? Okay, so I could put another trigger on my player, right? So one collider to another, right? But that's not really what I want. I have a first-person controller script, and it's stopping me from it's stopping me from getting through. So that's what's causing this trigger to fire. So we have some checks. So I'm going to go to gateway to level 2 or level 1, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if this is true. First, let's see if there's any kind of collision. So I'm going to say debug.log, right? Because if we're not going to get any collision, we won't even go to the if statement. I'm going to say something like, trigger. So just to check to see if that works. Yes.
Because it's registered collision with the child object as a collision with the parent object.
Let's see. Let's see. So we'll right through, right? So that should be registering it, and let's see what happens now. So we get nothing. So that's a good sign. So like we know that we're not getting anything here. So that's why it's not going to go down here. The other thing is I'm not getting an error. So it's not a collider error. Sometimes it's collision on trigger enter is the actual thing where you notice how it looks like it has to have a collider and it's this other collider. But we're going to go to the API documentation just for a second. So on trigger enter Unity. Because sometimes they give us some really cool hints on what we can do. Collider and other, destroy the other object, void on trigger enter, and we have a public example class with model behavior. That's all I needed. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something else, because that would be bad. So this is working, but we want to attach the script maybe to the parent object and see if that works. So let's just go back. And we'll just strip it off of this, the child object altogether. So just going to take it off of here and remove my component. Remember, it is a trigger, which is something different. I'm going to just add it onto here. Add it onto here as, did I just mess up? No. No, I didn't. No, there's no collider. So let's add that in. So I'm going to say, add, the script is there, but I want to add my collider, which is what I wanted. Physics Studios, right? My mesh, I'm going to add a box collider to my gateway and go back to my scene and just realign that thing. Here's my box collider. The reason why it looks like the way it does is because, of course, it doesn't have a way of measuring how big it's going to be in size. So we're going to make it so that it's pretty big, and we're going to make it so that it's pretty wide. There we go. And we're going to make it so that most likely this is going to do, okay? Now, I think that I can hone this up a little bit by making this even taller or wider, right? So a little bit tall, a little bit wider, and we'll center it a little bit on the Y, so it's just on the ground, and maybe make the Y a little bit taller even more. There we go, that's pretty good. And now the on the X, we're gonna have to make it on the Z maybe a little bit wider or narrower. There we go. So it's going to pass through. So can't automatically pass through. We'll make this a trigger. Yeah. Okay, let's check that. We'll save, and we'll go through and we'll try it out again. So now there's a trigger on the parent object, so that we know it's, and that's where the script is. It's on the parent object, not on the. Okay. Oh, I have a thing here. Let me take a look and see what it says. It says. This is good. This is really good. This is a good feedback. It says, scene level 1 couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the build. This is good. This is really good. So I'm going to say build settings here, and I'm going to add these into the scene. So add current scene, and you know what? I'm going to go to my scenes menu and add level 1 in there too, and we'll put level 1 above level 2. There we go. And we will close this down and file, let's say project. Now we can take that little script, this trigger, off of here. And we've got a gateway, right? Because that's what I was looking for. It's very, very simple to make that. We got a really cool effect to do that, right? So let's see what happens with our guy when we do that. Finally, so Igor, you were right. Walk through the scene, and bam, we're into this thing. Now we're into this much darker area with a barrel. What the hell? Notice how it's dark, right? And here's the other thing that you notice here. If I fire, I still have the same effects, right? It looks like I'm the same dude, but actually it's a new character. Tell me this: why is it so dark now compared to the other one? Is it the darkness, or is it because the change where we move from one to the other, right? It's also the ambient light and everything else. All the same things are here, right? And you know, just to finish off, and I won't be able to do it today, but what you probably want to do, because we're kind of running over time here. But if I look at the scene itself, notice that I've got this arch, and I can take the same arch, call it gateway to level 2, right? Put the same arch in another position, and also, you know, so that way it appears. So the guy will appear here. This is where my character will start, right here. Right, so when I come in, I'm just right in here, and it'll be pointing in the right direction, right? So instead of him starting way over here, right? So here's my player, right? Which doesn't make any sense. He'll start closer to the ground, not in the ground, right? And how about like in the right position? So kind of right here, so this is where he'll begin his little journey. So when I play, and this is level 1, and when I get to level 2, right, then I go right where I started, right? questions about today. This is what I would do. I just haven't set up my arch. And if I have a chance to do it, I'll do it in the first class, the other class I'm going to do tomorrow. But this, you can set up different ways, different archways, getting from one level to the other just by passing through them with an invisible collider, some kind of trigger, right? And you can also make a platform that triggers other things. I could make it so that the door itself has some kind of animation effect where it kind of, you know, swings the gate open, all kinds of stuff like that, or swings the gate down into the ground, which is kind of the easier way to do it, right? And all kinds of other things. So that's it for me today. Next week, remember that we're going to do a little quiz on the stuff we've done so far on terrains. We're also going to talk about stuff, and we're going to do it on day 2. So it's going to be on today's day. And I'll do a review next week on day 1, right, of the stuff that you need to do for your quiz. All right, so again, it'll be the same as before. It probably will take part of the class, not the whole class. It'll be multiple choice. I won't ask you to do something physical in the class, like to build something, but it'll be based on your knowledge of what we've done in Unity so far with terrains, what we've talked about with level building, how to do things with different cameras, how you layer different cameras together, all that stuff that we talked about over the last few weeks. And that's it for me.